Okay, amazing. Darren, so over to you. Thanks again for your involvement. Everybody, please give a quick round of applause into the chat room. Everybody, this is Darren Hood. Over to you, Darren. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's still morning here where I am. I am in Southfield, Michigan. So greetings and welcome to the GES event. I know this is fantastic. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great speakers. I'm going to dive right in today. I'm going to talk to you about micro-experience awareness. And we always hear the term Touchpoint. I have this little subtitle going beyond the Touchpoint because it's really a challenge to some extreme attention to detail. So let's get in. Micro experiences. Again, I mean, a lot of people are thinking, what are they? You may have heard the term micro interactions before. They can be used interchangeably, these two terms. You could separate them. Some people would argue for that. I'm not going to nitpick about that. We're simply just looking at a more detailed aspect of the overall experience that people are exposed to. And we're going to dive in, do a little history so we can level set. And then we're going to go beyond that and get into the weeds to explain a little bit more about what we're referring to when we say micro experiences and how you find them. So let's level set. First, because this is the CX track, there is a connection between CX and UX. And so I want to talk a little bit about UX, then a little bit about CX, to make sure we're all on the same page, and then we'll go forward. Now, quickly, from a UX history standpoint, the first person ever to have the title of UX at their work was Don Norman, someone who's considered to be one of the fathers of the discipline, if you will. He was referred to as a user experience architect when he worked for Apple. Interestingly, while people refer to him as being one of the first UX people, he did not do any work on digital experiences. It was all on devices that people were actually holding in their hand, tangible. I like to throw that little factoid out there because we're going full circle. But that's where it sort of started. People were not called UX designers or UX architects until about 10 years later, but you still want to call that out. There was some research that was done a few years later by IBM and NASA, where it was said that for every dollar you invest in UX, you could get anywhere from $100 to $250 in return. So it's interesting how that all played out, looking at the second and the third parts of this little timeline here. When that research was done, prior to that, most of the UX positions were held by creative agencies. Most of the early UX work was done in agencies. It wasn't done in corporate, your traditional corporate spaces. So fast forward, that research becomes mainstream. People start getting a hold to it. You get beyond the Digitas, LBIs, the MRM, the CANs, Sapient Nitros, as you see here, and people start to realize, wow, so there's money to be made if we invest in UX, really? And so people started to dive in, and the Bosches and United Healthcares, and even though IBM was one of the companies that did some of that early research, it still wasn't widespread within the company. GE, companies like that, you start to see UX becoming mainstream in those companies. Fast forward a little bit to get through this quickly again. You eventually experience a boom in UX positions, and then we get into what I like to call the wild, wild west of UX, where there's pretty much more positions than there are qualified people. And I don't want to go into on a tangent about that, but it's really it is wild, a wild, wild west today, which is why I use that moniker. But this is basically how UX has advanced. There are a lot of different things going on in UX, a lot of principles, but again, we won't get into that today. We just want to level set. CX has a similar track. In 1950, the follower of total quality management, W.E. Deming, came up with some bases for how to best optimize experiences and how to pay attention to the way that business is conducted, the way that experiences are structured, so that the business can optimize profit, so that everybody can benefit, the customers and the businesses alike. In 1998, there was a set of principles referred to as SERVQUAL that was established for the CX community, and we're going to touch on that in a few moments. So I'll move past this and get a little further into the timeline. In 1996, a man by the name of Fred Reichheld came up with the total quality management plus Six Sigma approach. So he wanted to take what Deming did, apply Six Sigma to it, and then get even further into, or I should say, establish a greater degree of excellence associated with the CX discipline. Not too long after that, the Net Promoter Score comes into play. 95 to 2001, you have the dawn of your customer relationship managers, your CRM folks. Creative agencies started to get involved in CX, and you have competition there. And then you have the enterprise feedback management system that came into play. A few years later, you've got the omni-channel age. You've got people that are tapping into and experiencing different solutions and principles associated with companies. It just really exploded. You got your website, you got your mobile sites, you got your mobile apps, you've got all different types of things, even beyond the digital, just the standard experience of coming into the store. You've got the IoT. There's so many different arenas, so many things for the experienced design practitioner to focus upon in order to optimize what they're doing to make things, again, better for the business, better for the customers, better for the users across the board. The omni-channel age really helped to complicate things a bit, but in a sense, while it provides challenges, we can meet those challenges. It's just our approach is key. And that's why we're looking at what we're looking at today from a topical perspective. Now, at the core of UX, you have heuristics. A lot of UX practitioners don't realize that today, but this is at the core of what we do. Heuristics and usability are the foundation. If you can't look at things heuristically, then you'll come up with a solution. But if you miss these heuristic principles, and there are a lot of them, if you miss the heuristic principles, what you design is going to fall short. Again, we're not going to get into this today, but some things that should stir some folks up to start digging into it if you know that you don't have a lot of knowledge about heuristics. Findability, accessibility, is it clear? Is it communicative? Is it useful? Is it credible, controllable, valuable, learnable, delightful? And this is just one school of thought associated with heuristic principles. But again, this is at the core of true UX practice. We mentioned SERVQUAL earlier, and at the core of CX is SERVQUAL, focusing on tangible elements, physical facilities, equipment, the staff, how things look, the appearance, the layout in a store, for example. When you go into the market, that's a CX element. You want people to find what they're looking for quickly and efficiently. Is the experience reliable? Are people able to perform services dependably? And can they be accurate in what they do? So people want to engage with a business that is reliable. They don't want to engage with a business where they don't know what's going on. They don't know how to interact with things. They can't trust you. They don't know what you're going to provide. They don't know whether you're going to come through for them or not. Issues of reliability are important. Responsiveness, the willingness to help and respond to customer needs. Customers want to do business with companies that are responsive, companies that are going to come through for them in the time of need. When there is a problem, can they count on you? Are they going to have a delightful experience at that level, at that point? Assurance. We sort of touched on this, and there is a little bit of overlap, but assurance is about the ability to inspire confidence and trust in your user and your customer base. And then lastly, in SERVQUAL, we have empathy, the extent to which caring individualized service is given. It sort of makes me think about the responsiveness aspect of it, but companies like doing business, or I should say customers, like doing business with companies who can relate to issues that they're having and will actually extend themselves and do everything they can to make sure that that customer, that user is taken care of. They want to feel like you care about them. If you can't communicate your care, then there will eventually be a problem with that relationship. And people do have options. So in a sense, and you may have thought about this as I was sort of going through that pretty quickly there, the stereotypical mindset about customer experience when it comes to engagement with the customers, with the users, is that of touch points. Now, touch points are basically high-level points of engagement that the user will have. At what point are they coming into contact with your service, with your solution, with your representatives, with your brand? So look at it a little broadly from that perspective. The touch points are indeed important. And to help us to sort of, as we're level set now a bit, let's look at, I know there are people all over the world attending this, and some people may or may not be able to relate to this. I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this in some way, form, or fashion. But these are the most admired companies and brands in the United States, some of them. FedEx. People love FedEx. A little bit of a challenge during the pandemic, and we won't get into that today, but still an admired company and a brand. Apple, USAA, Costco, Disney, Coca-Cola. These are all companies that are known for taking those heuristic elements, those SERVQUAL elements, and optimizing them so that people take pride in engaging, not just in partaking of the resources or the solutions or a website or whatever it might be, but people actually, they have a sense of belonging, and it's because these companies are dedicated to optimizing experience design, whether it's CX or UX, across the board, which generates a great BX, which is why people are dedicated to these companies. Really interesting stuff when you think about why people are dedicated to these brands. And if you talk to them, you'll find out that the experiences are just fantastic. Again, whether it's CX or UX, it's something that people love, and they take pride in being associated with the company. They take pride in having gone to Disney World. They take pride in being a member or a customer of USA, which is interesting because they're giving you their money, but they take pride in it. A lot of people don't realize you can instill a sense of pride in your customers. On the flip side of that, and again, this is based on the US, these are 6 of the most despised companies and brands. Comcast, Xfinity, Time Warner Cable, AT&T, Equifax, mostly because of the big data breach, Sprint, which is now connected with T-Mobile, so 6 of one, half dozen of the other, because T-Mobile is despised as well to a great extent. Spirit Airlines, a lot of people I've talked to, they fly Spirit because they sort of have to, but they don't like to. I've met, of the 50 people I've talked to about Sprint over the course of my career, most recently, only 1 or 2 people actually like Spirit. They usually fly it as it's like a necessary evil to them, the way that they talk about it. And why? Same thing. The experience landscape, the UX and the CX, things fall apart. People just hate all types of things. We'll get into that a little bit here in a moment. But these companies have problems. Even though a lot of these companies spend money on UX, they spend money on CX, but there's issues, there's disconnects, and the customers are letting that be known loud and clear. But here's the funny thought, and this is where we start to get into the weeds on this topic. Do people really hate these companies? Do they really hate? I'll use Comcast and Xfinity. This is a really interesting one, and one that comes up a lot here in the States. They are, for those of you that don't know, it's TV services, telephone services, and internet access. As people tap into using the Comcast, the Xfinity service, the funny thing about Comcast and Xfinity is that if you talk to users, I am a current customer. I have been a customer in the past and have left for some of the same reasons I'm about to point out. When you talk to people who were customers, they really don't hate the company as a whole. So the resounding answer is no. The problem is always in micro-experiences. You didn't like calling customer service. You didn't like the reliability of the internet when there was a storm. You didn't like the way something happened with the DVR service. It was never, I hate the company as a whole. It was always a micro experience where the problem existed. And so you have the pain points in the micro experiences that are the source of the problem. Hence, if we want to be good at what we do, we want to excel at what we do from a CX perspective, then we need to see the pain points that people present and deal with them as opportunities. These are opportunities to make the experience better. These are opportunities to build some of that dedication and that pride that we spoke about earlier with some of the companies that excel in this space. So if we're going to do well with the micro experiences, then we need to be first good at identifying them. Because the question is, where do I find the micro experiences? I hear what you're saying, Darren. I believe what you're saying. I'm on board. How do we begin the journey of finding these micro experiences so we can pay attention to them? So first, let's talk about macro experiences versus micro experiences for a moment. Macro experiences are the high level part of the experience as a whole. Think of the macro experience as the touch point. This is basically your traditional and stereotypical touch point that people have in mind. With micro experiences, these are like small components within the large macro experience. Here's an example of an experience map, a great way, not a journey map, an experience map, because as you look at this, how they've mapped things out here, a company called Sutherland Labs over in Europe, that they have identified planning the journey, finding a kiosk, riding the bike, encountering obstacles, finding a docking station, other docking station found, running to the station. These would be your macro experiences. These are your high-level components. But listed beneath that are small sub-elements that are part of that macro experience, and the problems are usually going to be there. When you break down the details associated with that high-level touch point, now you have your opportunities, because that's where people complain about the most. They just tend to bubble them up and ascribe them to the entire brand. Here's another example. Changing a password, macro experience. But micro experiences include initiating a password reset, answering security questions, password authorization code, masking the appropriate fields, two-factor authentication, proper contrast in the experience, field placement and alignment, the dreaded CAPTCHA, which a lot of people hate. We just are forced to do it, especially the one where you have to identify what's going on in the pictures, and calling to get login assistance. Yes, there are places where if you want to reset your password, you have to make a phone call. That's really painful. But these are all realities. But these are all the micro experiences. These are the areas where people get frustrated, whereas changing the password is the high level part of the entire experience. Here are a few more quick examples. With Apple, you have very courteous update options with different services in Apple. They make it clear, easy, intuitive. With Disney, you get presented features when you're at, say, Disney World. You have a system. There's a little device that you have on your wrist, and as you walk into different areas in the park, you'll have different benefits or different features that are offered to you that are pertain to where you are within the park. So that's a pretty nice experience. FedEx offers supportive notification options, and this comes out to be really, really helpful and handy. You can customize them, and it helps you to understand where your packages are, when are they going to be delivered. The notifications are really great. Spirit, one of the problems with Spirit is if you're trying to confirm and update your flight status, this is a problem. And so that's a big pain point. As mentioned with Equifax, the assurance of data security, that creates anxiety for a lot of people. So in order to optimize the CX there, they need to make sure that they're constantly assuring people and giving people confidence about their data. With Sprint, just think about any part of the bill payment process is just an absolute nightmare. So you can find a lot of examples and a lot of opportunities there. Here's 4 quick examples: Verizon, Garmin, Imagine Theaters, which is a theater chain here in Michigan where I live, and Synchrony Financial. They have a lot of touch points here: signing in customers upon arrival at the store, purchasing movie tickets online, providing excellent customer service, providing familiar change password process. All these things, these are things that people experience across the board with different services. But if you look beneath the surface here, you're going to find there's problems with micro-experiences. Verizon, unlike AT&T, when you walk into the store, someone may sign you in, talking about the physical store, but you don't know where you are in the process. You don't know how long you have to wait. So there's a micro-experience problem there. Imagine try to purchase tickets, but if you try to purchase tickets in a row of non-reclining seats, you actually cannot complete the process. So buying tickets, high level, specifying certain type of ticket, not such an easy process, problematic. With Synchrony, you can't change your password with Synchrony. So at least at one time, hopefully they fixed it by now, but you can't change your password. You have to jump through hoops, and you may even get prompted for a phone number to get a notification about the password change that doesn't belong to you. Really, really painful. Garmin, on the other hand, has a really great service, and a lot of other companies have adopted this now, where when you call, they'll let you know how long you're going to be on hold, and they offer you a chance for a callback so that if you don't want to sit on hold, they will call you back, and they indeed call you back in a timely manner. I've experienced that before, where someone, they call you and they hang up as soon as they call, so the process is broken. So really good micro-experience example there with Garmin. Here's another example about what you can do for finding your micro-experiences, examples for where you can add this into your workflow so you can do a better job of identifying these opportunities because again, this is where people are going to complain. So if you don't pay attention to micro-experiences, you're really leaving the door open for a lot of problems. Conduct a task analysis. And this is where, using again, if you're going to set up how to change a password on your site, that might be the high-level touch point, but that consists of steps. When you perform the task analysis, you understand exactly how many steps it will take to complete that task. Each one of those steps is a micro-experience. Make sure that those are solid, then you're in a good position. Experience and journey maps. Again, this is a great way to see what's going on. Every step with experience maps or journey maps, being more detail oriented than experience maps, but both of them will give you opportunities to identify places to optimize micro experiences. First, identifying them, and then you can go to work on them. Establish a persona library. If you have a persona library, you can list out certain aspects, micro experiences, because you list out pain points on a persona. You can actually list them there, and then the team will be more aware of those as they're doing their work. You can also do what I call an experience audit. This is something you do after the fact. This is something that you do after you've identified the micro experiences. You know what's going on. You've already done the work, but things do change. So if after you've deployed a solution, after you've implemented a new layout in your store, whatever it might be, go back and continuously audit that experience to see if there are any changes, to see if any new pain points have arisen with your users, with your customers. And as you conduct these experience audits, you may even uncover a micro experience that didn't stand out before. So again, 4 different ways that you can engage from a micro experience perspective and be better at managing them. So closing notes. Identification of touch points is valuable to CX, but it simply is not enough. We need to go beyond the touch point. UX plus CX equals BX. You cannot design a brand experience. It is going to be dependent upon what people feel about your business based on your UX and your CX, what you have put into each. BX is an automatic equation, and people are going to think about you what they will. You want to make your BX better, make your UX and your CX better. People don't hate or despise certain companies as much as they hate the micro experiences provided by the company. So keep that in mind. They hate the micro experiences, but then they form a holistic opinion of the business based on what happens in those micro experiences. The most admired companies pay strict attention to detail, providing excellent micro experiences. And again, these are the steps within each of the processes. Micro experience engagement value. It'll help you to achieve business, product, and solution self-awareness. It establishes foundations for innovation within the business. Helps maintain and expand competitive advantage. It's a big one. Risks for not engaging. Missed opportunities to improve and identify issues. Customer ridicule goes a long way, especially in an age of social media. And lost goodwill and customer trust. These are absolutely huge. So, folks, that is it. And I hope that we're still close to being on target in light of all the tech issues that we've had today. But if you want to hear more from me, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter at UX Uncensored. Check out my podcast, The World of UX. You can hear it pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast today. And thank you again, Stephen. Thank you again for folks at Tech Service giving me a chance to share my insights with you today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Darren. That was incredible. I think the closing points there especially really hit home on the difference between annoyance with service as opposed to the company as a whole. Those micro elements there, very, very true.